How's it going, everyone? Now, is there a black line on my video, or is this black line for me, or is it for everyone? One sec, let me just check this stream on Restream. The tech for streaming is as complicated, if not more complicated, than any programming stuff ever. I'm just checking Restream. Log in. I think it's just on my machine, but we will find out. We will find out. Oh, two-factor authentication time. So, coffee. Restream. Oh, it's on one password. Okay. Copy. Paste. Let's see if this is going to YouTube. See what this is looking like. Okay, cool. Yeah, for some reason there's just a black line for OBS just for me. Let me click over here. Get this going. How's it going, Jeff? Yes, I haven't seen you in a while. Are you still living in Canada? Or did you end up moving somewhere? Alright, so today there's two potential ways this is going. I was speaking to one of my buddies back in California who just became a software developer. He's actually, if you saw my video I posted like last year, he's my old drummer friend who went from being a drummer to a software developer. So he might be joining us later today. He's got some coding questions, but with the way the time zones are going, I'm not sure if he'll make it. So that's one way this could go. And then the other way this could go is I'm going to go over, take a little bit of a detour, talk about some language learning, and not just like C#, Java, JavaScript language learning, but some of you may know I've been really focusing on learning Chinese the last the last 2.5 years, but the last 3 months I've been going hard. Like I've been going almost as hard as I can. So starting next month, I've signed up for like three hours a days worth of classes at a university nearby my house in Taiwan. But this month I've been doing like 5 lessons a week privately, plus studying using a tool called Anki. So I want to go over my Anki setup because I showed it. My girlfriend, she's a Chinese teacher, and I showed her my Anki setup, and she's like, "You gotta just walk people through this. This is crazy. This is like next level kind of studying." Yes, I'm currently in Taiwan. It's currently noon in Taiwan. I've been out here since Christmas. I moved here December 25th. Yeah, and I've been here for about 7 months now, which is pretty crazy. I was leading an engineering team at a startup out here for a while. Now I'm kind of doing my own kind of thing, like doing that digital nomad, doing like freelance work. I'm actually doing some interviews too, which I can talk about not later, but once some of those go through, there's some really cool opportunities I've found by moving to Asia, especially when you've had experience working in a like California setting, like experience working at fast-growing companies, experience working at companies where like you have to deal with millions of transactions per day, kind of stuff. Like taking everything I've learned from California and then starting to apply it to some startups here has been really great. So things are starting to open up again in Taiwan. I went to my first in-person meetup on Friday, which was awesome. Like it's like just like the meetups I used to go to back in California. Number of COVID cases we have is super low. I think we're getting like maybe 2 or 3 cases a day the last couple days, and last week we had 0 cases in the whole country for 3 or 4 days. So things are going really well on that front. I really do see like live events coming back pretty darn soon. Well, they've already started to come back, and I think they'll come back even like the volume of these live events will come back even sooner. How's it going, Aziz? You'll like this, Aziz. I'm actually going to go over some of the language learning stuff I've been doing. And I have like the most crazy Anki setup. Jeff is saying 80 per day in the city alone. Jeff, are you still based in Windsor? But yeah, I was talking to my parents about COVID stuff too, and he said more people have gotten COVID at the bar down the street in Spain where they're living now than like in all of Taiwan. So I'm pretty happy with how things are going here. They're pretty strict. Like when there's any sort of issue here, everything gets shut down. But I'm kind of okay with that because usually when things get shut down here, they reopen within like a month, so it's not too crazy. Okay, so let's kind of jump into this. I'll show you my setup. So where is screen share? Screen share. Where is it? Office hours, screen share. Okay. So the trick I found, so a little bit of background. I started learning Chinese 2.5 years ago. The reason why I started learning Chinese 2.5 years ago was I had organized I had a trip planned to go to Guangzhou, and I figured, okay, it's 6 weeks away. How about I just like cram as much Chinese as I can? I'll take lessons 5 to 7 days a week for 6 weeks. And I know I'm not going to learn enough to like do a speech in Chinese, but I should be able to pick up enough to like order coffee by the time I go to Guangzhou. So that's kind of how I started my language learning journey. I literally just went to italki.com, found a tutor, bought like 20 lessons in advance, and just booked them every single day. I actually found, now that I remember, I found 2 tutors. One for like Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I think, and then one on the weekends, just because of the scheduling. And I figured, since I knew so little, I knew nothing. Even if the teachers repeated the same things, same lessons, that's fine, because I knew it was going to take me at least 8 tries, 10 tries in a row to remember anything. So I did that. Went to Guangzhou. I knew how to count to 1,000, and I knew how to order coffee, and that was it. And while I was in Guangzhou, and yes, Guangzhou speaks Cantonese, so that was the other thing too. But they're able to do both. Like the likelihood of them being able to speak Mandarin to you versus like especially to taxi drivers versus them speaking English, they're more likely to speak Mandarin. Luckily, I went with someone who was from Guangzhou and she could speak Chinese fluently, so that was cool. But once I came back to the States after that trip, I figured, what if I just, because I was already in the habit of going pretty hard, doing like 5 to 7 lessons a week, I figured, what if I just keep this up? What if I just keep doing 5 lessons a week? And so for that year, I probably averaged about 3 lessons a week. So depending how things happened at work, I would scale back on lessons, or I would increase as I got more free time. But there wasn't a single week that year or the following year that I didn't have at least 1 lesson. So I went between 1 and 5 lessons a week for about 2 years. At around that time, after about 2 years, I still wasn't that good at speaking. So I figured, how about I find a job where I can move to Taiwan and just like really force myself, really force myself to learn. And so I found a job, joined a startup, moved to Taiwan, and found another Chinese teacher here, and I started doing 1 hour a week lessons with her. And then after a few months, like that job, I ended up deciding to like leave that job, and I went back to doing 5 lessons a week. What I noticed though is there's really 3 things you have to learn. You have to learn, it's not just, you don't just like learn Chinese. You don't just, like Jeff says, you don't just like learn German. You really learn how to speak the language, you learn how to listen to the language, and you learn how to read the language. And those are 3 different skills, especially in Chinese. Especially in Chinese. Like the reading, oh my gosh. So what happened was, because I had so much speaking practice, but I never really focused on reading at all, and the reading I was focusing on was simplified instead of traditional. And for those who aren't familiar, there's 2 different writing systems, and the simplified one is simpler. My reading coming to Taiwan is pretty much non-existent. Pretty much non-existent. And then I found, unfortunately, whenever you go to a restaurant here, all the menus don't have photos. 99% of the menus don't have photos. So I really needed a way to focus, to like bring up my reading to speed. Now, throughout this process, I'd heard about this program called Anki. And what Anki is at its core, it's a program that shows you flashcards. It lets you make flashcards and then automatically shows them to you. And there's both like a desktop version and there's like a phone version too. The phone version's great for reviewing on like the train or on the subway. And I've gone in and out of using it. Like when I first started, I was using it a bit, and then I stopped, and then I did, but I decided like I really wanted to be able to read these menus. And so I was like, okay, no more playing around. I'm going to sit down. I'm going to freaking learn how to use this app and like use it every single day. And over the past, actually 47 days, if you see here, I haven't missed a day in 47 days. So I'm pretty happy about that. So what makes this different than just like making physical flashcards is, as you review these cards, you tell Anki how easy they are. And every time you mark a card as easy, or mark it as like, oh, I understand this, I remember this, it'll show the card later and later. And any cards you mark as hard, or mark as like, oh, I don't know this card, I don't remember this, it'll show it to you over and over again. So what that allows you to do is allows you to really focus your time on words you don't know, but at the same time remind you of words you've kind of learned in the past. So it's really, really great that way. I've been speaking to my girlfriend as I've like gone really, really hard on learning Chinese the last 47 days or so, and she noticed a big difference. And I really do attribute it to this, to like the focused studying and the focused just drilling stuff in your head. But if you've used this program before though, you'll notice that my version of Anki is like on steroids. And that's because I got really into, I like sat down, I read all the docs on Anki. I watched hours of YouTube videos on it. I learned pretty much, to my knowledge, pretty much every single feature you can learn, and I got really into what's called add-ons. So Anki's open source, and what that allows you to do is you can actually code add-ons for it. So if I pull this out over here, if you notice over here, I got a ton of them. I have like probably like 40 different add-ons. Now, the reason why I was able to find all these was there's a YouTube channel called Anki, and this is a medical school student. So I found the 2 big use cases for Anki has been learning languages and for medical school students, because both really both require you to just like drill information into your brain and remember it forever. I do make my own cards, but I also use outside decks, so I'll kind of go through that. So if you search Anki on YouTube, there'll be a link of popular add-ons they found. I downloaded. What you're able to do is go to their website and then move the folder of add-ons over, and then you can get all the add-ons they think are the best and that are all integrated together and make sure they don't all conflict. So that's been really good. So on the making cards versus using decks, I do both. So I got this one deck. It's called Chinese. And it's a little bit, I have so many add-ons, it loads a little bit slow, but that's okay. Open this up. Oops. Let's give them a little bit of, okay. So I got basically 3 decks under this main deck. One is called Chinese Lessons. These are custom cards I make. And the way I make them is, as I'm taking Chinese lessons, I save my notes. I take notes in what's called Notion. So I'll pull up Notion. So for example, I actually just finished a Chinese class an hour ago. And so during this class, this was done virtually because there's still a bit of a lockdown. I take the most bad notes ever. Basically, my teacher will type stuff into the chat, and I'll just paste them in here. And you notice this is all just Chinese. And I'll go through making the card. This is good. I get some Chinese out the way. So what I'll do is after class, these are all kind of words that I didn't understand or I didn't remember. So what I'll do is I'll open up this deck. I'll click add. And then I have different kinds of cards I can use. So for basic vocab, I actually found a plugin called Anki Chinese Redux. And this is why these plugins are so powerful, because you can really leverage other people's effort. And the reason why I like Anki more than other flashcard programs, even though the other flashcard programs have a way nicer UI, the customability of Anki really makes a difference. So learning how to use this crappy UI is totally worth it because you're able to leverage things like this. So I found an add-on that gives me this advanced Chinese note type. So what I'm able to do is I'm able to paste in the Hanzi. I can click this button for Chinese support. And when I hit tab, oops, I already had turned on. When I hit tab, it fills in the pinyin, the bopomofo, the ruby with bopomofo. It gets the English definition automatically. Sometimes it fills these in too. It's not perfect. It gets the sound from Google Translate. And then if I want to put an image here, this is a really simple one. This is like Zhaoan. What I can do is I can open up Google. And that's what I'll do. I'll just go to images.google.com, copy the Chinese, paste it in. Zhaoan is like good morning. And then I find an image that's like, seems the most good morning-y to me. And to me, like when I think good morning, I think like a coffee. And this girl looks like she's wishing me good morning. So I'll do right click, copy image, and then paste image. And then boom, if I go to cards afterwards, oh, it's over here. You can see it makes a card that on one end has the Chinese, and then on the back,
早安
poops all this out. And so this is an example of why like learning how to use Anki and learning the like the advanced features saves so much time, because you can get this, like this was all done for me. You can also change the template. You can also change the templates here. So a good example, say if I want the image, say if like, oh, I kind of like this template, but I want to move the image to the bottom. It's just good old-fashioned HTML like mom used to make. You paste at the bottom if you want. But again, like, this got changed, yes. Again, it's really bad being able to build on top of other people's work and knowing just enough to tweak stuff on advance. And then from here I can click add, and bam, now it's in my Chinese lessons deck. And so what'll happen is every day I get 20 new cards, and there are things like maybe things like that, and I build up a backlog on what I've generated from my class notes. Now, sometimes after doing some lessons, maybe I won't have that many notes. So what I do to supplement, because I want to be learning new stuff, is I've added 2 outside decks. So one is I actually found a deck that has, let's see if I can pull it up. So like, this is like my Chinese notebook, textbook. I literally Googled this word. So what I did was I Google Translate scanned the top, copied the traditional characters, and then pasted this Anki deck into Google, and I found one. Put this down. I found someone had actually already made a deck of all the vocabulary in my textbook. So if I open this up and hit like study now, like closet, I can look at that. This is like actual vocab I have to learn for my Chinese class. So instead of me having to make these cards myself, I was able to find one that already had them. So that's another thing too, is not only can you build on top of people's card templates, but you can build on top of like people's decks they've already made. And especially when you're taking like a Chinese class or a German class or anything, any popular textbook, there's going to be one person, at least one person in the world, who's also really into Anki, who's kind of made a deck for you. And then the last deck I have is, I found this one online. These are just very common Chinese phrases. And you noticed here, there's like 1,500 cards total. And so what I'll do is, depending on how many lessons I'm taking that week or that month, like if I go back into working full time again, or if I have a really, really busy week at work, I'll change. Maybe I won't be adding that many Chinese lessons cards of custom ones, but I still want new ones being fed in. So if this ever dries up, like if there's never not any new custom Chinese lesson cards in the queue, it'll start queuing up cards from this outside deck. So I'm using a combination of creating cards myself and using outside cards. And that's, I've found, has been the best combo for me personally. I do agree that making the cards yourself is important, and not necessarily because like the act of creating them is helping you remember them better, but I think it's important because it lets you, like when you make cards yourself, you're making cards for words and phrases that you use very, very often. So perfect example, and not everyone is using the same words and phrases. So a really good example of that is, let's see if I can pull it up. If I can go through, here's a great one. Where's the tag? Want to do. Now this phrase, I want 2 winter melon green teas with boba. This is an example of a sentence. Let's see
我要
preview.
2杯春芽冷露加珍珠。
This is
我
an ex-
要2杯春芽冷露加珍珠。
so this is an
我
example.
要2杯春芽冷露加珍珠。
Yeah, this is an example of
我
a
要
sentence.
2
one sec,
杯
the sound.
春芽冷露加珍珠。
So this is an example of a sentence that 98% of people, if I were making a textbook and I wanted to sell it to 500,000 people, I probably wouldn't include this particular sentence because, first of all, it's very Taiwanese specific, and second, it's a very specific order from a specific boba tea place that is nearby my house, that is like me and my girlfriend's favorite order. And so for like maybe for a Z or Jeff or anyone, like you putting your time into learning this won't really improve your life that much. However, for James over here, me putting in the time to memorize this sentence has improved the quality of my life by a full like 1%. And that's because before I'd memorized this sentence, I kept ordering like the same basic boba tea order. And while basic boba tea is better than no boba tea, in my opinion, this order is the best one at Kabuko, which is the name of the place by my house. This is the best order you can get, in my opinion. Like the winter melon green tea with the boba is pro. And so that's why making your own cards is important. Is not only will you optimize for sentences that directly help the quality of your life, and this is especially true if you're living in the country. It's a lot easier to find those sentences that help the quality of your life when you're living here, because you just get sick of ordering the same. Like I just get sick of ordering the same stuff, or I get sick of not remembering how to tell the delivery person to come to the 5th floor when when they ring the little doorbell. That's why making your own cards is so important, because then you can optimize your time into learning phrases that directly increase the quality of your life. The more phrases that you learn that increase the quality of your life, the more likely you are to speak them. The more you speak the phrases, the more your confidence goes up. The more your confidence goes up, the more you'll be more likely to use even more phrases that you're not that confident about, because you get that dopamine hit and you start training your mind and being like, oh, I can learn how to do this. And so it's really like exponential growth, I found. The first 3 months of learning Chinese, I basically just was trying to say the sounds right and got almost nowhere. But then, especially over the last 60 days or so, using this strategy of making my own cards to optimize for my life and then supplementing that with textbooks and stuff has been a freaking absolute game changer on that front. Again, like this kind of view here, this is another example of an Anki add-on. All the tags and stuff look really complicated. When I first started out, I didn't have any tags or anything. But these tags are from that deck from my textbook. So the person who made this deck is the best because they tagged them based on book number and chapter. And so right now I'm on book 2, chapter 6. And so like these are all the vocab from book 2, chapter 6. These are all the vocabulary from book 2, chapter 7. And so what I'm able to optimize my time because I like to add a picture to every single card. Because like they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and it really is for memorizing. Adding the picture really does help you memorize it. But I don't want to sit down and add the picture for everything all at once. I want to like be able to like plan my time ahead. So now I know I'm pretty much almost done chapter 6, so I started adding images for chapter 7. Once I'm about halfway through chapter 7, I'll add images for chapter 8, and so on and so on. So yeah, that's the tag side. And yeah, that's kind of the summary of the cards. Some other plugins I have here, which might be kind of interested. Let's see, actually, what's the chat saying? Okay. Do you make your own cards like mom used to? I only want boba tea. See, Azzy doesn't want boba tea, so him learning that sentence is a waste of time. Jeff says, is the stuff over there tea-wise less sweet than here? So in Taiwan, you can get some really, really, really sweet stuff. So when I order boba tea, I always order wei tang, which means like less sugar. Less sugar. I think I've ordered full sugar before by accident because I just said like 我要珍珠奶茶, which means like I kept saying yes until they gave me something. And so I think I got full sugar once, and it was like diabetes in a cup. It was like way, way, way too sweet. But in general, there's a lot of like sweet stuff here, especially on the drinks side with boba tea. Boba tea was invented in Taiwan, so there's a ton of really nice tea places over here. Like just being able to order it in English is hard enough because there's so many choices, and so just having my way learning it through Chinese is even trickier. As he says, is this winter melon and this is spring? So here's an example of my reading not being good because I see maybe yo. I can't remember. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then Jeff says, I'm interested in visiting Germany for the beer. It would be nice to learn a little bit, even though English is common. So if I did this with Spanish, one of the first languages I learned on my own. Actually, the first language I learned on my own was Spanish. I'm not fluent in it at all. But what I did was 2 months before I went to Spain. The reason I was going to Spain was my parents moved there. They retired to Spain. And so 2 months before I went to Spain, I was like, okay, I'll book one Spanish lesson a week on Italki and just see how far I can go. And so what I did, that was really, really worth it. Because then I was able to go to Spain, and I knew enough Spanish to apologize for not speaking Spanish. Like, lo siento, I keep getting Spanish mixed up with Chinese now. But like, lo siento, no hablo español, hablas inglés, which means like, I'm sorry, I don't speak Spanish, do you speak English? That got me really far. Having the tutor really, really helps, especially me. My personality type is I don't like letting people down. And so I use that to my advantage by hiring tutors and coaches. And it's not even, part of it is I know I've spent the money, so I don't want to waste money. But more importantly is I don't want to show up to a Spanish class or a German class or a Chinese class and not have done my homework. Because then it's just embarrassing. Because then you're sitting one-on-one, and then you have to admit as like an adult, like I didn't do my homework. Like it's just embarrassing. And even if they're like a really friendly teacher, you still like, at least me personally, whenever I haven't done my homework and gone to class, I'm just like, come on, really, James? Really? Like, you're in your 30s and you haven't done your homework? So that's been really, really good motivation on my part. So I really recommend book the trip first to wherever you're going, and then just book some lessons. Depending on how good you want to get, and how much you're going to practice. Like I said, my best advice is to just book 5 to 7 lessons a week, one day after the other. Because let's be real, you're not going to practice. You're not going to practice on your own. You think you will. That's been my experience there. But even if you just do 1 lesson a week and then either supplement with Duolingo or supplement with something like Anki, that's fine too. And again, that's where Anki's handy, because then you can work with your teacher and be like, I'm going for a trip. What kind of vocab do you think I need for this trip? And then you can form sentences for like, I'd like a beer, please. Where is the bathroom? Like all the basics, and memorize them there. The other thing that really helps too is there's an app. I'll pull it up. I've tried pretty much every language learning app, honestly. But my favorite one has been Pimsleur. And this is especially if you're trying to use it to like learn enough of a language to go on a trip. This has been my favorite. So what this does is it's a series of audio lessons, and they're each a half an hour long. And all you do is it says a sentence, you listen to it, and then you repeat back. And it says a sentence, another sentence, you listen, and you repeat back. And it sounds simple, and it sounds like it wouldn't get you that far at all. I did 30 days in a row of this on Chinese, and honest to God, it gave me enough Chinese to like order food at a restaurant. Like, it's crazy how well that works. Because again, there's 3 different pillars. There's the listening, there's the speaking, and then there's reading/writing. I bucket them both together, and there's reading/writing. If you're trying to go to Germany, luckily it's the same character system as English, so you can kind of guess your way through a lot of the reading, which is nice. But the speaking is number one important. If you can say like "I want" and point, then you'll always be able to get what you want, which is nice. And Jeff says it's like going to Dr. Sin's class and no homework done. Yes, Dr. Sin was me and Jeff actually went to the University of Windsor together, and Dr. Sin had the hardest math class, and I passed with like I passed. I have no idea how I passed, but I managed to do it. Actually, I know how I passed. I showed up to every class and I showed up to every class and tried my freaking best, and I managed to pass. But it's like, yeah, the feeling of showing up to a university class and not doing the homework, I found showing up to a private tutoring session and not doing the homework for me personally is even more embarrassing. Because at least when you show up to the university class and they haven't done your homework, like your buddy beside you and your other friend beside you probably haven't done their homework either, unless you're accidentally sitting beside like the really smart kids. But when it's one-on-one, it's the accountability is just that accountability booster is huge. If I click up here, yeah, you can pass with a 20% on that class due to a curve. I honestly think I got like a 25% then. Well, no. I remember being really, really, really proud of myself for that class because I passed with a D. And the pity pass is a D-. So that means it wasn't pure pity that caused me to get passed. So I was pretty proud of myself there. The one thing engineering school really taught me was the value of just like finishing stuff and not worrying about it being perfect. So some of the other kind of cool plugins I got here, especially for language learning, is I have this text-to-speech plugin. Now this is clutch because what it allows me to do is, say if I have some, I'll need to pull up a different card type to make it simple. Say if I have one of these. Say if I want to type a sentence like ni hao, ni hao, ni hao. Once again, I can't think of an example off the top of my head. Like 我要一杯咖啡. Oh, cafe. I'm guessing. Now, say if I want the front of the card to have some audio, what I can do is with that text-to-speech plugin, which is here, I can click on this, hit preview,
我要一杯咖啡.
and this is using the Microsoft Azure text-to-speech, which is way better than the Google one, the sound quality, and hit
我
record,
要一杯咖啡.
and puts in the card. Now, what I used to have to do is such a pain in the butt. I used to have to go to this website, download the MP3, and drag the MP3 in, and this plugin just makes adding those cards so much quicker. And that's what I really found was the key, is if you make it as easy for yourself as possible to create and add high-quality cards quickly, you end up making more high-quality cards. The more high quality cards you make, the easier it is to memorize stuff. The easier it is to memorize stuff, the more likely you'll use that vocabulary while you speak in everyday life. The more that you speak in everyday life, the better you get the language. The better you get the language, it's a positive feedback loop. The other nice thing here with this plugin was I was able close, yes. At the time, I already had a bunch of cards made, and I wanted to add speech to a bunch of them. And so what I was able to do is, let's see, I was able to highlight. So here's a bunch of sentences that was made. So what I was able to do is I was able to highlight a bunch, then click add audio to selected, and then I could go through every single source field, and anytime it just would read the one field, create the audio, and plop it into the card. So what I was able to do was I already had about 100 or 200 cards I'd made that didn't have any audio, and I was able to really quickly select them all, click this, and then it would plopped out 100 audio files, which if you were to do that manually card after card, it would have taken at least 8 hours, and I was able to do that in a minute. So that's why like little plugins like that make a huge difference. So that's for language learning. Awesome text to speech is #1 favorite. This plugin gives you a nice little heat map, and having the squares green does give me motivation to keep going, and seeing the longest streak is 48 days. Now I don't want to break the streak. That's been really big for me too. Like psychologically, anything I can do to trick myself psychologically to keep studying has been big. I have this leaderboard plugin too, and I've been trying, like, I added, my roommate's also learning Chinese, and so I added him to like a group, but I'm still trying to figure out how to use this. That's the problem. Like, all the UI UX for all this is tricky, and it is coming from a software engineer with 10 years of experience. It's still tricky. So me and him are supposed to be in the same group, and we're supposed to be able to compete with each other, but for some reason I don't see him. No big deal. The other thing that's nice is this stats page. So I have this other plugin called Anki, and the idea is, like, as you do studying every day, you get experience points for your Pokemon. Meh, I don't really like it. I don't know why I have eggs. Like, I don't really get how to use that. That was just me trying to dig around, but some of these other stats plugins are a lot cooler. So it showed like how much I've studied today. I haven't done any of my cards yet today. I've only done 2 cards today, so that's not too much. It shows how many cards I'll have in the future. This one's cool. It shows how many reviews I've done a day over the last 3 months. So you can see I started getting back into it about 66 days ago, but as I've like got better and better using this, I've gotten more and more reviews. But here's another neat one. This is number of reviews, so this is number of cards I've seen, basically. Now compare this, if I click here, this is how much time I've spent on the app. So you notice my time's actually gone down or stayed the same, but my reviews have gone up. And the reason for that is I added a timer when I do reviews. So by default, let's see, by default, if I click study, this card will just stay here. And then what I noticed what would happen is I get like a text message on my phone and get distracted. I get distracted somehow. And so even though I'd spend an hour studying, like I said, timer spend an hour studying, I would like kind of lose focus. So what I added was I added a plugin that every 6 seconds shows the card. So clicking this button pauses it. So this automatically shows the card. And then a few seconds later, about, I think I set the timer to 6 seconds and 10 seconds. So after 10 seconds, if I don't say anything, if I don't click on anything, it'll go to the next card. So actually no kitchen, so I'll be good. So it goes next card. So I'm looking at this, so I don't know what it is. It
录影机
automatically shows. 录影机. So I didn't know that one. That is how I got my number of reviews up. And I found that it's better to get shown the same card like 30 times in the same day with this 6-second, like, and spending that 5 seconds really focusing trying to do it, than it is trying to spend a full minute trying to remember the card. And that kind of shows in my stats too. So that was a big game changer, was setting the timer, because like I said, now I'm getting more reviews in, and my number of like young and the number of relearning cards I have is going down for less actual time spent. And that's why, like, another reason why I think I mentioned this before, but that's the difference between having like a very focused studying session versus when I was in school. The way I would study is I just like write things down over and over again, or I just review my notes. Here I know like I'm doing focused studying, and that focused studying is giving me more return on my time than just like kind of sitting there reviewing stuff. So that's everything on that side. So any other kind of plugins off the top of my head? That's the main thing. So I'm still learning as I go here and finding new plugins all the time. But this has definitely been a game changer. And I've shown this, like I mentioned, my girlfriend's a Chinese teacher here. I've shown this, like bits and pieces of this to her as I've been learning stuff. And she actually asked me to come talk to her class. So my plan is I'm going to put together, like today was kind of show and tell. But my plan is I'm going to put together like kind of an actual either series of YouTube videos or like a live presentation. I might do the live kind of presentation route and then turn it into a series of YouTube videos. I'm not sure. That really goes over each of these more in depth, because this has really been a big game changer for me. And as someone who's currently, like, a lot of people think you can just move to a country and then, you know, get a girlfriend who speaks language and you just learn from her. Like, that doesn't work. And I've met a lot of foreigners like myself here who've lived in Taiwan for like 3 years and still can't speak Chinese. And the only way you can do it is with like focus practice. And I found this has been the best way for me to get that focus practice in. Is there any other questions that anyone has about this? I'm really happy y'all joined today. I know this is a little bit different than some of the tech content, but I think I'm gonna turn this week into more of a show and tell of whatever I'm looking at, and like getting questions in advance from people rather than just being focused on tech. Because, you know, if it's my channel, I can do what I want. And I think it's people are interested when you're passionate about something. People are interested in hearing about it. Well, that being said, thanks everyone for joining. I'm gonna go get some lunch. Thanks Jeff for coming out in Canada. Thanks Aziz for joining in from Seattle. If you have any other questions, we actually have a Discord. Let me get the link. I always get it from here. Open up the thing. We have a Discord link I'm going to drop in the chat here. Copy link address, and the chat is it's here. If you want to join, we'll be talking about tech stuff and adventures in Taiwan in general. Thanks again. Have a great night. Have a great day, and I'll catch you all next week.